you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little black subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that black subscribe button. Really does help our audience grow, really does help our channel grow, really does help and mean more than you could possibly know. So go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Also, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet 50 on any game, get $250 in free bets. Thank you again to Betfred. Thank you again to you. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Switch gears, and I want to keep the conversation going on the transfer portal news and notes. Portal feels like it's starting to wind down. Just talk Ryan Nembhard to Gonzaga, what it means for the Zags in Arizona. But what I want to do now is switch gears and hit on a bunch of other transfer portal, relevant pieces of news from the portal, because there were a lot this weekend. And I would argue, outside of Ryan Nembhard, there was no bigger one than in the beautiful town of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where for the fourth time, Hubert Davis picked up a marquee transfer portal commit on Saturday. The biggest, most impactful, most important one yet, as Harrison Ingram, 6'7" wing/forward, former McDonald's All-American, played his last 2 years at Stanford. He chooses, well, I don't need to give you the drum roll because I just told you, he is headed to North Carolina to play for Hubert Davis and the Tar Heels. Let me say this before we talk about Harrison Ingram specifically. Listen, I know there's a lot of heat on Hubert Davis. I know a lot of people are rightly frustrated with the way the last regular season went. But in terms of fixing a program in the offseason, got to give Hubert Davis credit. I think he's done about as well as he possibly could have through about 5, 6, 7 weeks of the offseason at this point. So let's break it all down. Let's start with Harrison Ingram. Really good player. I mean, he was, I think, number 4 on my transfer portal big board all offseason. Hunter Dickinson, Max Abmas, Ryan Nembhard, in any order. Harrison Ingram is right there with any of them. Again, big 6'7" wing. Really good freshman year 2 years ago at Stanford. He was actually trending to be a one and done. Went through the NBA draft process. He felt like one of those fringe guys that easily could have been like a late first rounder, early second rounder. Does he want to, does he want to stay? Does he want to go? Ends up deciding to come back for one more year of college basketball, and it just doesn't really work out. As a freshman, he averaged about 10.5 points per game, 32% three-point shooter. As a sophomore this year on a Stanford team that was just, they struggled all year long, right? Injuries, rotational issues, whatever. Stanford was not very good, although they had some good moments late. They beat Arizona late in the season. Harrison Ingram's stats were pretty static, basically. 10.5 points, 32% three-point shooting. Again, there wasn't that leap that you wanted to see from a future NBA player at Stanford. He decides to hit the portal, chooses North Carolina, actually over Kansas. So I think, one, you just got to feel good if you're a Tar Heels fan. Bill Self doesn't lose very many guys that he wants, if you know what I mean, whether it's out of the portal or recruiting. So Carolina gets their guy. And again, I think it's just about the perfect fit. Now, look, he's got to improve that three-point shot, but I think he will with the talent around him, because here is why this makes so much sense and why this kid was such a priority for North Carolina. Hubert Davis, since the day he got the job, I remember talking about this 2 off seasons ago, like hours after he got the job. He basically acknowledged he wanted to be a little bit different than Roy Williams. Roy Williams had historically played those 2 big guys, and Hubert Davis said, look, we still want that back to the basket, low post center that we can dump the ball down to and get an easy bucket for. But then also, in my time as an assistant coach, the toughest player that we have had to defend is the 4-man that can make plays. And that's exactly what Hubert Davis has kind of focused his offense around. 2 years ago, it worked really well with Brady Manick. Last year, it didn't really work well at all with Pete Nance. But now you get a fresh start with this kid and with this team going into 2023, 2024. I'm getting my years mixed up. But they needed that stretch 4 that could make plays off the dribble, that can hit open shots, and they got him on Saturday. And I'll admit, I really do like this Tar Heels team going forward. Now, I understand everyone's going to say, Torres, you're the guy that overhyped Carolina last offseason. And yeah, I'm guilty. I had them number 1 going into the year. They missed the NCAA tournament. Shame on me. I stink at my job. What do you want me to say? But at the same time, what I can say about this offseason is, again, 2 things. One, if we're grading Hubert Davis on the offseason, we can only grade what he's done since the day the season ended. I think he's done about as good of a job as he can, and I like how the pieces fit. Now, part of this, and we've talked about it many times, it's very clear that the mantra coming out of North Carolina this offseason is basically, we're not going to blame Caleb Love for everything, but we're basically blaming Caleb Love for everything. And so Caleb Love is kind of, leaves the program. It was called a mutual decision. I don't think Carolina fought very hard to keep him. But now look at the pieces that are coming back and look at the pieces that were added this offseason. Coming back, down low, Armando Bacot. We know that when this guy's healthy, he is a great college basketball player. Listen, we all know how this NBA stuff works, 6'11", back to the basket center. But at the college level, this guy, I think people forget, when healthy, he had one of the great NCAA tournament runs we've ever seen from a big guy in 2022. Multiple 20-rebound games, multiple 20-point games. I think he had one 20-20 game at one point in the NCAA tournament. You bring back that veteran RJ Davis at point guard, but then again, it's what you've surrounded themselves with in the portal. 4 different players committed, including Harrison Ingram, but here's who they have for people who haven't been paying attention. One, the first commitment they got was I think before the Final Four. Paxson Wojcik, guard from Brown, yes, in the Ivy League. Now, that's not a guy that you're going to rely on to play 32 minutes a game and score 18 points per game. But he averaged 16 a game in the Ivy League, 39% three-point shooter this year, 38.5, give or take. And if he's your 7th man, and if all his job is to do is come in and create offense and hit open shots, I think he can do it in the ACC. Beyond that, a few days ago, you add Cormac Ryan, again, former top 100 recruit. Ironically, like Harrison Ingram, began his career at Stanford. Now he's at Notre Dame, plays at Notre Dame. Season doesn't go well. Can't blame him, though. 12 points per game, 12.5 points per game in the ACC, 38% three-point shooter as over the course of his career. Numbers dipped a little bit this year. But you got another guy that you know can compete in the ACC. And speaking of knowing you can compete in the ACC, you also added Jalen Withers, a backup big from Louisville this last season. Now, he was a starter at Louisville. He'll be a backup at North Carolina. But again, what I like about this group is how the pieces fit. RJ Davis at point guard, shooting all around him at every spot on the floor. Back to the basket center in Armando Bacot, 4-man that can stretch the floor and make plays in Harrison Ingram. Oh, by the way, they might not technically be done yet. One could add a piece or two in the transfer portal. They have a 5-star, fringe 5-star, maybe a 4-star guard, depending on your recruiting service you choose. Simeon Wilcher, he is coming in to be part of this team. Will probably be a backup next year, step into that starting role in year 2. And then keep in mind, North Carolina has 2 5-stars committed in 2024. Elliot Cadeau there's starting to be some rumblings that he could be a reclassification candidate. If he comes, that's another body. That's another depth piece. That's another guy that can step in and make plays at that guard spot. Oh, by the way, Ian Jackson, still haven't given up hope on him potentially reclassifying, although that one looks less likely. So I could go on, and I'm not going to throw flowers at Hubert Davis's feet. He's got a lot to prove on the court, really struggled to open his first season, close strong, NCAA tournament run, Final Four, etc. And then this year was just a complete disaster. Was it Caleb Love? Was it Hubert Davis? Was it some combination of everything? I don't know. But as I always say, the show is tonight. I can only judge based on what I know at this moment. And heading out of the final full weekend of April, I really like this Carolina team going into the 2023-2024 season with Harrison Ingram, the latest commitment.